You're listening to Public Safety First, a podcast to help you learn about the First Responder Network Authority and how you can be part of the future of public safety technology. And now, your host, Dave Buchanan.
Welcome to the Public Safety First podcast. In this episode, we hear from Mike Worrell, Western Director for the First Responder Network Authority. Before we hired Mike 3 years ago at FirstNet, Mike served for 29 years with the Phoenix Fire Department, his last position being the Technical Services Division Chief. Mike interviews Assistant Chief Rodney Reed, the Harris County Fire Marshal's Office. With over 13 years in the fire services community, Assistant Chief Reed is responsible for running the operational support component for the Harris County Fire Marshal's Office. In addition, Assistant Chief Reed serves on a variety of emergency services committees, including the Texas DPS Statewide Interoperability Training Working Group and Harris County Radio Special Interest Group. Mike and Assistant Chief Reed talk about Harris County's experience as an early builder. They discuss how the new generation of firefighters is taking advantage of database technologies to enhance response capabilities, the importance of bringing stakeholders together early on to understand how technology can improve information sharing across disciplines, and how FirstNet will streamline data sharing so that public safety leaders can make informed decisions. Mike and Assistant Chief Reed had this conversation at the IAFC Fire Rescue International Conference in Dallas, Texas.
Hey, I'm Mike Worrell. I'm at Fire Rescue International 2018, Dallas, Texas, and we're here with Chief Rodney Reed. And we're going to talk a little bit about his experience with FirstNet. And Rodney, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, Rodney Reed, I work for the Harris County Fire Marshal's Office, which is in Harris County, Texas. I've been with them for 6 years. Prior to that, I was a captain in the 101st Airborne Division with deployments over to Afghanistan. And then before that, I was a volunteer firefighter. So kind of come back home to my roots. So.
Okay. Well, Harris County was one of the early builder projects, and you've had some experience on using LTE and FirstNet. And can you give us some examples of how that's benefited your organization?
So I think the applications piece of what FirstNet's going to bring is actually fitting much better into the age demographics of our emerging fire, EMS, law enforcement. They're growing up learning how to operate in apps. They're putting OtterBoxes on their phones so they can operate in extreme environments, right? And it's just very natural for them to be working on there. And I think that's also going to lead us to better information sharing, right? To ultimately achieve that common operating picture of sharing each entity's data into that situation where the LMR gave us 1,000 words. The mobile application is going to give us a single picture that's worth 1,000 words that's updated in more real time than what we were doing over LMR.
Great. So, I just listened to your presentation, talking about, the response to Hurricane Harvey, and you were using some applications there, and, you were talking about common applications and naming standards. How important are some of those things to the success of interoperability in the future?
Absolutely. One of the critical pieces that we've found in Harris County, working with Harris County Central Technology Services, the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, is the importance of bringing all your stakeholders to the table very early on, making sure fire, EMS, law enforcement, hazmat, public works, emergency management are all at the table, so we start to understand what the use case is for each one of the response entities, trying to find applications that are shared, because what we don't want to do is the technology allows us to communicate and share information, and what we don't want to do is allow ourselves to be siloed within the program, right? Because this ego won't allow this, or there's some sort of statute that doesn't allow me to share the information. We have to get into an environment where we have a standard in which we share information and we don't silo ourselves, no different than we've done in the past. So that's where AT&T and FirstNet and mobile applications are hopefully going to drive us to a better ecosystem for response. But again, there's the whole development and making sure everybody has user accounts, everybody understands this. But again, as we introduce each new generation of public safety responders into this world, they're already coming more equipped than the generation that's leaving. And eventually we're going to come to a plant where all you have to do is give them a username and password, and boom, all of a sudden they're ready to go. And they're not teaching them anything. They're teaching us now how to use technologies that we adopted.
Do you find that generation has a higher expectation of the information that's available to make decision making, when they show up on an incident?
I think absolutely. We used to, from my experience in the military, right? We learned that we would communicate information over the radio, and then we go overseas, and now we're using various GPS tracking capabilities. We're flying ISR overhead, or drones, or UASs, right? All those things that have kind of become the standard in the military are now becoming the standard in public safety, right? We're launching UASs much more on our incidences. So now we have this amazing amount of data. Well, now I need to share that data. So how am I going to share it, right? Well, that's where AT&T and FirstNet are going to allow us to start moving that data, because again, we always say that lawyers advise and leaders decide, right? And what we want to make sure is that our leaders have the most amount of information to make some of those tough decisions. And in an environment where we can truly share applicable, relative, accurate information, we should be doing that, and our first responders should be able to absorb and make those critical decisions.
That is really important, because when they're sitting in the front seat there and they show up on something, they have to have that actionable information, accurate, actionable information.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest problems that we face in public safety is the expectations of the residents and the citizens that we're called to respond to. In the days of social media now, their ability to share information very fast, right? So the problem is that creates an environment where public safety is continuing to be asked to stretch, to arrive as fast as we possibly can to incidents, make those critical decisions, and decrease the amount of time that we're in emergency response phase, and so we can get into recovery. So again, any way we can streamline those decision-making processes accurately is going to be critical.
Well, have you experienced any situations where you guys have had to use, you're probably using priority and preemption on the network?
Oh, absolutely. We have some, being one of the early adopters and kind of the build out and the way that Harris County has really kind of stayed at the forefront of the development and understanding, is making sure that when we have our large incidents, Super Bowl, for example, you start packing all these people, the rodeo. Absolutely. There comes that time where in previous worlds we'd look down at our cell phones and go, oh, we're out. Right now we're looking at our mobile devices saying, oh, hey, we're still in the game. All right, let's keep moving. So it's really exciting, and we in Harris County are going to be working with AT&T and FirstNet at the end of this year, and really putting priority and preemption to the test, and proving to our public safety responders that the solution is here, the solution is viable, and it's going to help protect first responders and residents and citizens' lives.
Well said. I can't say any better than that. So I think thank you for your time, and appreciate you doing this podcast.
Mike. Absolutely, brother.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening today. We're excited to have you join our podcast community. And make sure to subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can learn more about the First Responder Network Authority at firstnet.gov and learn about FirstNet products and services at firstnet.com.